We are going to finally tackle factory rear turn signals. Left turn with brake, left turn without brake signal.
Real bad boy. I've got a ton of gravel in my shoes, world on my shoulder, heart full of blues. I'm in the dirt, down in the dirt.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Justin. Today on my Z-Force 950 Sport, we are going to finally tackle factory rear turn signals. You have to do a little bit of splicing and put a converter in order to get the rear taillights to work for the turn signals, at least in the US models that don't come with the turn signals factory. Honestly, this is something I've just been putting off because I don't feel like taking this whole thing apart. You know, we're gonna have to take the whole thing apart, just the back. But I'm getting ready to do that. I'm gonna take the back of it off. What I have purchased, I just went to my local AutoZone and picked up, it's called a Hopkins Towing Solution 4-flat converter, and it's an LED converter, 5 wires on one side, 4 wires out the other. That's what you'll need. And then I've just picked up some quick splices, splice connectors to be able to easily connect all the wires to where they'll need to go. Some of these will need to run the turn signals. We'll get into all that as we put this together. So let me get the box off, back end undone, and then we'll get back into it. Okay, so now that we've got the rear off, we're going to take off the air inlets and the fenders on both sides. I have a video where I talk about painting the air inlets, where I show how to remove them. It's just 3 Allen head bolts that come out, and these pop right off. For the fender, you're going to have 2 10mm bolts back here, 1 10mm bolt in the middle, and 1 10mm bolt towards the front. Then you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 push pins under here that you're gonna have to take out. Let's get the air inlets off, let's get the fenders off, and then we'll come back and talk about how to get the rest of the back off. So we've got the fender and the intake cover off of this side. I ended up leaving that last push pin in there and just laid this down and rested it on the tire. I'll have to take it all the way off. I'm not going to. Those are going to have to come out in order to get this back section off. I'm going to have to, I undid my windshield. I may have to end up taking it off, but there's push pins on the inside of there that are going to need to come off. We're going to have to take this off and see what we have to take off inside the air box to get this back piece off. Let's get into that now. Okay, so I went ahead and took my rear window out. 3 10mm bolts under the panel that goes over the air box. You'll need to take those out. Looks like there are 2 Allen head bolts on the front inside of where the air box is. Then you'll have 2 push pins on each side here. Probably have to get these out as well. Some Allen head bolts here, a few more Allen heads down here, and then hopefully this should come off. I'm not 100% sure because I've never had this off before, so we are going to find out together.
Doubting whether it's true, all the things you said you could do, not in the mood for a failure. Always staring up high, hoping for a glimpse of the sky. This ain't no time to pretend.
I do still got to get all this off over on this side as well. You know, now that I'm looking at things, I'm not even 100% sure this fender here even has to come off. Okay, so behind this fender here, okay, so back behind in here, there is a little tab right here where there's a bolt that's holding this back to, and it attaches to this air hose there. So you're gonna have to make sure that comes off as well.
I'll feed your ego, together we go.
Now that I've got everything out, there are a few things that are a little tricky. You've got push tabs up underneath this light that have to come out. There are a couple bolts that I showed you that have to come out from up underneath the air intake on both sides. Once you have all of that done and out, you are going to kind of start from the back here and pull it up. All right. Now, I've never taken this off, so I'm not sure how difficult this is going to be. Oh, wasn't too bad. So, and then now this back part comes off, tail lights and all. You are going to have to go back behind here and unplug the tail lights. If you follow the wires off of the back of the tail light, there is a wiring harness back here that we're going to use to disconnect the tail lights. Oh, this side is a little tighter right now because I still have the stuff all zip tied together. So let me take care of that. So now this should come a decent way off of here. And if you look on the back side, once you kind of pull this off a little bit, there are your wiring harnesses for your tail lights. Okay, we're gonna move to the inside for a minute. My converter box, I want to sit back here just for the fact that I don't have the one with the super long trailer wires, and I don't want to put it back in the engine bay. So if you look on here, your green wire says right turn, your yellow wire says left turn. And what they're gonna go into are the right and left front turn signals that have already been ran and hooked up, right? So, okay, so left is going to be to the orange turn signal wire on the back of the switch. Then cap it off. We're going to do the same thing with the yellow wire. It's going to run your baby blue wire. And we are just going to simply splice right into it. Push everything down, make sure you get a good connection. Okay, so that should be good. We'll have to ground this 5-wire side here. But for right now, I mean, that's about what we can do. This red wire, which is your brake signal, is going to run to the back. The other green and yellow wire are also going to run to the back, so I'm going to get some wire, get these connected, loop it and run it through so it's hidden, and we'll talk about what to connect where in the back of this thing. I've measured out the wire for the rear turn signals to run from the converter, and we are going to use a couple butt connectors. All I have currently is red wire. I will end up labeling these back further towards the tail lights. But I'm going to go ahead and connect these now, show you where I'm going to run them, how I'm going to hide them, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to connect this first wire. I'm going to go ahead and run it back, get it spliced in. That way you'll be able to see it. Then I can do the other side. Then we're pretty close to being done, actually. Okay, so connections are made. I'm going to go ahead and just... I'm going to feed it through here, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to run it to the back. Obviously, if you have a different way, you're more than welcome to do it that way. I'll pull this wire through here all the way until it's fairly snug. And then I'm going to actually feed this one right down on the other side of the fuse box here. and it will come out in this area here. I'm gonna run it back behind this in this little space here between that roll bar and the body panel, and then I'm gonna feed it up back behind up through there, and it's gonna run up and along this part of the frame here and connect into that spot right there. So what's gonna happen is on the driver's side here before the tail light, you are gonna cut this green and yellow wire. The part that leads back into the harness will take the wire from the brake wire on the converter side. The harness side will take the turn signal. And then we're gonna do the same exact thing over here. We're gonna stop the connection from the harness and just run the turn signal to this. So what should happen is that converter box should feed both of these instead of the actual wiring harness from the machine. So let's do that now, then we'll test it and see how it works. So I'm gonna cut some of this loom away just so I can open it up a little more. So I want to cut this green and yellow wire, and I want to have enough space on both sides to be able to get a connector in here, because we're going to have to connect to both sides of this wire here. Okay, so we got one connection there. I probably should just undo these tail light connections, but I'm trying to do this without taking, I mean, it's already almost all the way off. I don't know why. I'm worried about that last little bit. Okay, so the turn signal part of the wire from the converter box will go into the actual part that feeds the tail light. The other side is going to do the same way. The turn signal is going to feed into the harness part of the tail light, and you cut the wire leading from the connector back to the harness. We'll run one more wire for the brake wire off the converter right here. That should be good to go, I think. We'll see what happens.
Playing dirty, talking cheap.
So I've got everything ran. We're all hooked up, getting ready to test. On the converter, you've got a 5-wire side and a 4-wire side. 4-wire side is what feeds back to the taillights. 5-wire side is what feeds forward. On the 5-wire side, you have a green wire and a yellow wire that will go to your front turn signals, which are the orange and the baby blue that we've covered in a previous video when we set up the factory front turn signals. The red brake wire will actually feed back here to the back. And on the driver's side, from the wiring harness, the green and yellow wire that feeds into the plug for the tail light, you will cut that in half. The brake light wire will go on the side heading back towards the wiring harness. The turn signal wire will go on the side leading to the turn signal plug connector. Passenger side, you will cut that wire. You won't do anything to the harness side, and you'll just run the turn signal wire from the converter to the wire, the green and yellow wire that feeds into the tail light on the passenger side. All that is before the tail light harness. Probably very confusing. It was for me. It was pretty confusing for me. If you have any questions or anything, just shoot a DM. Feel free to reach out. But this is all set up now and should be working. I have all the turn signals ran. So let's give her a quick test. Let me turn the machine on here. Now I'm not going to know if any of this works until after this and I come back and check the video. So if it doesn't, don't make fun of me. Okay. That's off. Parking lights, tail lights, brake lights, left turn with brake, left turn without brake, brake lights, right turn with brake, right turn without brake. All right. Now I'll go back and review this little short part of video and make sure that it works. All right, guys, so as you see, we've got the factory turn signals working. You don't necessarily have to take the fenders off. We didn't on this side, we did on this side. You can really just kind of pull this back. You don't even really have to take this all the way off. It's probably a lot easier to work back here if you do. Probably would have saved me a little bit of time. And then we'll talk about how to get the indicators to work on the actual speedometer and display up front. Okay, so switched over to my smaller camera. Audio will be a little bit different. So that big plug right there, it's literally right behind the panel. That plug right there. So if you look on the left side of that plug, that literally goes up and feeds right to your display. So on the side that feeds to the display, you have a baby blue wire, and then right next to it you have an orange wire, which, if you remember, are the same two colors as the turn signals that come off the headlights. So what we're going to do is we are going to splice into those with splice connectors and run them to the front and rear turn signal wires on the back of the switch, and then that should give us turn signal indicators here. Okay, so what I've done is I've unhooked the connector and pulled it out. If you look right here, you have a blue and an orange wire right next to each other. So I'm going to splice into these, and then we're going to put it into the turn signal switch and plug it back in and see if we have indicators. Okay, so I unplugged the plug to pull it up and get better access to it. Baby blue wire, orange wire, spliced in and running and spliced into the corresponding wires on the back of the switch. So splice into the baby blue on this plug, run it to the baby blue on the back of the switch, splice into the orange on the back of on this plug, and then the orange on the back of the switch. And we should plug this back in now. Okay, now that we've spliced into the wiring harness for the display, in theory, we turn on this left turn signal. Alright. Then we turn on the right turn signal. Alright guys, there you have it. Factory rear turn signals, factory signal indicators on the digital display, or on the digital gauge display. This was an all-day project. It'll be much easier for me to go through now and do it since I know exactly what it is I'm doing. Huge shout out to Mike, and I'm probably going to butcher your last name, I'm sorry. Huge shout out to Mike Belling. He helped me out a ton and walked me through this. I am not the first one to do this. I know him and Jeremy have already done theirs and taken care of theirs, and it looks great. They did an excellent job. I cannot thank those guys enough for all the help that they have shown me. So if you guys see them in the forums or anywhere in the Facebook groups or anything talking about it, and you are going to get ready to do this to your machine, make sure you send them a thank you for doing it first and letting me know how to do it so I could go through and attempt to show you guys the best way I knew how. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave me a comment down below. We are less than 3 weeks, about 2.5 weeks out from me and Blake linking up in Mississippi, and I cannot tell you how excited I am. So finally got our last few Mud Tracks products in, tested. Those are getting ordered tomorrow. Hopefully Mud Tracks will be ready to go, bottled, labeled, and ready to launch here in the next few weeks. This has been a much longer process than I ever anticipated it being. Working our way through it. We're going to get these products done and get them out to you as soon as humanly possible. Thank you guys again so much. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you in the next video.